Hello guys, this is Fred from Profile, and today I'm extremely proud and feel fortunate to be talking with one of the best guitar player of all time, Mr. John Petrucci. How are you doing?
Oh man, thank you for thanks for that introduction. Nice to
Well,
meet you.
it's true. Uh, we know you very well for being a founding member of Dream Theater, but my interest today goes toward your brand new solo album titled Terminal Velocity, who was just released on August 28th, so it's brand new.
Brand
Uh,
new,
yeah.
yes.
First question, releasing an album under your own name compared to a brand new Dream Theater album, for example, what's the
Right.
key differences in terms of like expectations, anxiety, excitement?
Well, I mean, for it was I did this differently than Dream Theater in that it's released on my own label through the Orchard distribution. So there was a lot more hands-on involvement on every aspect of getting the record, to the public on every level, including, dealing with the pressing plant and marketing and everything you could possibly imagine that goes into creating a record that normally there would be a team behind you was just me. So, and of course the people at the Orchard. So that's the biggest difference. I mean, as far as expectations go, I'm realistic. It's guitar, instrumental music. Although my name is associated with Dream Theater and it reaches out to the Dream Theater crowd, it's probably not going to have the same type of worldwide I don't know spread or success as a Dream Theater album would have. But having said that, it's doing really well and it's been received really well. So I couldn't be happier, But yeah, I mean, I try to make my expectations realistic. To me, it was more important that I just got the music out and shared it
Yep.
and completed this after so long.
So 15 years has
Yeah,
passed since your previous solo album. So any
right.
reason why such a long period between the two?
Well, I mean, it's like my focus really in my career has always been with Dream Theater, even though, back then in 2001, when I did my first G3 tour, was kind of like, I like to think of that as the start of my solo career. But even then, it took me a couple of years to create a record, Suspended Animation, based off of the songs that I would play live on G3. And then just consumed with all things Dream Theater. We're a very busy band.
Yeah.
We make records every couple of years, and we do worldwide tours that last months and months and months. And then in between that, I've done a lot of G3 tours and guitar camps and everything else. So they're literally, maybe this sounds like an excuse, but there literally isn't time, unless every little bit of time you have at home, then you're back immersed and working. It's kind of not the way I like to live my life. But eventually, it really, really felt like, I have a lot of material. People are asking for this. It would be fun. And the pandemic hit, of course, and that gave me a lot of time
Yeah.
that I didn't necessarily anticipate to be able to get it written, done, out, recorded. It freaks me out that it's out. It's like it's done.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Now about the album itself, Terminal Velocity, it's instrumental, but
yeah.
when you wrote the music, did you have like a team to follow or not really?
Not really. Each song is kind of its own thing.
Okay.
I a couple of the songs I had actually played, wrote a few years ago and played live on G3. People that saw some more recent G3 shows or came to my guitar camps, they might have seen those songs. Um, but a majority of the music was written starting in March, and they sort of stem from these little seeds of ideas that I collect all the time over the years, and some of them I use for Dream Theater, some I use for other things. But the ones that stood out to me, like this would be really great to explore for a solo album, I just developed those. Like I said, starting in March, and they're not really connected thematically. I would say to answer your question, it's not really a theme. Just the theme to me was show how much fun it is to play guitar, and explore some different styles that you might not necessarily associate me with or hear me play in Dream Theater, and have fun with the whole thing.
Yeah, but when you're busy doing something, or like
Hmm.
with being with Dream Theater, and you have an idea for
Yeah.
something solo, like do you record it on your like your cell phone? Do you like
Yeah.
how do you keep track of all your ideas?
I found that's the easiest way for me to do it. I have an iPhone and it has voice memos, and that's
Okay,
literally the simplest way to do it. So, if I don't have a guitar in my hands, I can just sing into it,
that's
and
good.
so some sort of crude version of a melody or a riff, and then I just label it. A lot of the ideas come to me while I'm playing guitar, and that could be anywhere. That could be at home. It could be in a hotel room, backstage before a show. I mean, this stuff happens all the time, and I've really gotten into the habit of not ignoring that little moment of inspiration, however short the idea may be, and just recording it. And sometimes those ideas are not even song ideas. Sometimes it's like a lick idea that like, oh, this would be cool somewhere in a solo or something. I don't want to forget this pattern,
Yeah,
whatever. I think it's a really good habit for musicians to get into the habit of, into the practice of, and it doesn't have to be this like full blown thing where you have your computer and an interface and you got to get it down into some sort of you know DAW. Like just open up your phone, whatever it may be, and just record it. And you have it. Make sure you label it, and then the other thing is
yeah.
to and then you organize it so you have like a folder on your laptop or whatever where you put all this stuff in, and you can get to it and reference it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
How does it stacks up with suspended animation? Like, what are
Hmm.
the key similarities and differences?
Well, I mean, I would say that the similarities is the instrumentation is the same. I purposely kept both albums, guitar, bass, drums, just really made it focus on the guitar with a drum and bass rhythm section. No guest artists, no keyboards, no vocals. That's definitely a similarity. I think stylistically, the two albums kind of go hand in hand. It's not like if you listen to Suspended and then Terminal came out, you'd be like, wait, is this the same guitar player? I think they go hand in hand. I think
Oh,
musically, stylistically, they both kind of just reflect what I'm about as a guitar player. Although, of course, I like to think as a musician, I've grown over the past 15 years, but they're not complete departures from one. It's not like one's a blues album and one's a metal album. They're both very similar in that sense. The difference, first of all, the drummer is different. That's a big one. Mike Portnoy played on Terminal Velocity. The first record was Dave DiCenzo and Anthony
okay.
Verderosa, Tony Verderosa. So different drummer. Bass player is the same. The recording engineer is different. Used Jimmy T this time as opposed to Doug Oberkirker last time, and the mix engineer is different. Kevin Shirley mixed Suspended, and Andy Sneap mixed Terminal Velocity, and all the guys that played on this. I don't know if I mentioned it. Dave LaRue, of course, is
Yeah.
a similarity. Dave playing on both Suspended and Terminal, but all these guys on my team, if you want to call it, have contributed to making this record successful, and I wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Yeah.
I'm just one person writing guitar music, but it takes all these people to really, bring it to life. So very grateful.
So you kept it as a trio.
Yeah.
Like inviting more musicians was never an option.
No, it's not
No.
something I'm really interested in for this type of thing. My personal view of a solo album is it should be a reflection of that musician, artistically and creatively. And I'm not knocking what other people do by having like other guest musicians come on, and this solo is by this guy, and this song has
Yeah.
a solo by this guy. That's fun. It's a different type of approach to a solo album. To me, I find that distracting from the artist. Like I just want to hear what that one person's voice is. And so to me, the best way is to not have distractions. Again, not mocking how other people do their
No.
thing. Those are fun projects, and that's cool. That's how other people choose to do. But for me, it was important to, just make it about guitar. I don't know. Maybe it's selfish. Maybe it's
No.
egotistical. I don't know.
No,
I
it
just
makes
want to be
perfect
about my
sense.
guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Take me to one day in the life of John Petrucci writing music for a new album. Like, how does that work? Like, you're at home right now due to COVID.
Well, fortunately, here's the good part, and the timing of this could not have been better, and I would not have been able to do this if the timing didn't exist the way it did, where Dream Theater built a headquarters that we had been trying to do for years and years and years and years to house, a facility with a studio and rehearsal and, lounge and storage and everything. We kind of had stuff spread out. We didn't really have a place to do little projects or photo shoots or whatever, post production work. We always had to go to studios. So we finally built a place, found the place, built it out, and it was ready. And so when I sat down, and it's actually very close to where I live, so I didn't have to just stay home and try to do this in my home studio, by myself with headphones, sitting there with my lap. Thankfully I didn't have to do that. Even during the pandemic, I was able to drive to the studio. It's only 20 minutes away from me.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's a full blown, fully functional studio. Me and Jimmy T, our days were about 10-hour or so days. And we were it didn't really matter what was going on in the outside world. Of course, we were, safe and precautious, and we didn't go anywhere. And we were basically on lockdown except for the two of us going to the studio, because New York was in bad shape at that time. And I would just get in and start writing. If it was a pre-existing idea like the ones I said from G3, that it was a matter of, okay, going to the original demos, opening up a session in Pro Tools, laying them out, maybe reprogramming the drums so we had a better reference, and then just start tracking. And I would do that. If it was a brand new song, I would take one of these song seeds that I said I had on
Yeah.
my iPhone, like the song Terminal Velocity, that little opening motif that's from an idea on my phone. It stood out to me as like this would be a really cool thing to develop. And I literally got the tempo, okay, put that in, set it up, here we go, and tracked. Let's record some drum programming. Let me play bass on it. All right, cool. Where should this go next? And it's just all, there's no other band members there, so it's just me
Yeah.
kind of like being stream of consciousness creative. And we did that about 5 days a week, about 10 hours or so a day for 3 months, and that includes, getting the drums recorded and get, everything else. So
That's a
and
lot
I
of
think,
investment.
yeah, in about 2 months, I think it was all done. I recorded all the guitars, from the beginning, so I didn't have to go through a demo stage. So they were done, and then Dave LaRue and Mike Portnoy recorded to those final guitars, which is different. I don't never really did it that way, but it worked out.
It, it did. You mentioned about Mike Portnoy. You two didn't work together for like 10 years or so. Uh, can you share how you approached him with the idea of the project and how the discussion went?
Sure. Well, he knew from previous discussions we had earlier in the year that I was doing a solo album. We talked about it, but I didn't ask him at the time. It's just like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Um, and he said to me on the phone, hey, if you need somebody, I'm here, because I hadn't decided who was going to play drums yet. And he was just being nice, and we're all home. This pandemic going on. He's like, hey, if you need somebody, if you need help, let me know. That was it. About a month or so into writing, I decided to ask him, and I woke up one morning. I was debating. I'm like, is this a good idea? And, of course, I knew Mike would do a great job, but do I want this sort of like tie-in and possible risk of controversy and attention taken away from my solo album
Yeah.
and put more on the reunion? And I just woke up one day. I'm like, I'm being ridiculous. Life's too short. It's a freaking pandemic. I'm just gonna call my friend. I haven't done anything musically with him for 10 years. And he said yes, and we made a plan. And he actually came up to my studio for a week. Of course, I sent him all the music, sent him the songs with the programmed drums, and we had a few conversations. He was like, "Oh, do you want me to play it exactly the way you programmed?" I'm like, no, do your thing. There might be sections that are really specific musically that I'm going to want you to do, but for the most part, do your thing. And he did his homework and took notes, came in, and I mean, he tracked each song. He probably like played through each song maybe twice, and then he'd be like, okay, I think we got it. And we'd go in and listen. Oh, maybe this section from this take, and if there was something that was like not quite right, then okay, why don't you go in and overdub that part? And that was it. It was, took about 6 days. I was set up. We didn't really play together, but a few times I was set up so that we were able to work out some musical sections that were more challenging together, which was nice. But for the most, really he was tracking his drums to my completed guitar. So again, a little different doing it that way. I've never really worked that way. Normally the drums go first and then you track to that,
Yeah.
But it worked out, and he did a great job. Dave LaRue recorded remotely. He lives in Florida. He couldn't come up, so he tracked at his studio, and we just communicated. Whatever. Same thing with the mix with Andy Steep. FaceTime. You do what you got to do.
Well, it looks to me that the musical chemistry between you and Mike, like, is totally intact. I mean, even
Yeah.
after 10 years, because it sounds beautifully.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. About Dave LaRue, like, what's so special about him and his bass playing?
Well, first of all, I have a ton of experience playing with Dave because, excuse me, even though it's been 15 years since my first solo album, the second one, I have toured extensively with Dave on G3. I've done I don't know how many G3 tours, maybe 8 or so, in North America and Asia and Australia and Europe, and hundreds of shows I've played with Dave LaRue on stage with me. So we have this musical connection and chemistry. But he's just such a great musician. He's so musical. He could listen to things and just know what to do as a bass player, feel wise, transitionally, connecting parts. He has the ability, because of all of his experience, I'm assuming, with the Steve Morse band and everything, in how to play in a trio and kind of fill out the space as a bass player. He's a monster at doing that. He's incredibly professional. He's never unprepared. Just like he could teach me my songs. Like if I have questions, I ask him. He's just a tremendous, tremendous talent and musician. And technically, as a bass player, he could pull off all these crazy parts, and at the same time have the musicality to be able to do a blues or a shuffle or some sort of Latin feel in an authentic way as a bass player. Because not everybody could do that.
Yeah.
Not every musician could be a chameleon and just be like, oh, we're doing bossa now, and it's like sounds exactly the way it should. So, just and he's amazing,
Yeah. Well,
unbelievable.
it's what a trio. I mean, it's unreal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Uh, I have a few more questions because I'm time limited. So, but before I let you go, those questions they only require one or two word answers. So,
Okay,
are you up for this?
I'll do my best.
About your personal music taste, are you more into prog rock, metal, jazz, blues?
Oh man, uh, I probably lean more towards metal. And sort of what like makes my ear happy. Guitars, probably due to the guitars. I'm just into the guitar sound.
What is your favorite album of all time, or one that you would never get rid of?
Well, my favorite band of all time is Rush, and one of my favorite albums by them of all time is Hemispheres.
Yeah.
So that would be one.
You played all around the world. Do you have a favorite venue in mind, or one that you really enjoyed playing?
Well, I'll tell you, being growing up in New York, playing, I could say Madison Square Garden because we did with Iron Maiden, but as Dream Theater headlining, and we've done this 3 times so far, playing Radio City Music Hall in
Wow.
New York City is pretty much, as spectacular as it gets.
Growing up, who was your favorite guitar player?
Steve Morse was and still is my favorite. I was very, very influenced by Steve and the music of the Dregs. So yeah, hands down, Steve.
One instrument you wish you could learn to play.
Piano.
Oh,
I'd
you
love
don't?
to be able to play piano.
And you don't.
I don't. Be awesome.
Uh, what was your first guitar you ever owned, and how old were you?
I was I got my first instrument when I was really young. I was probably around 9 years old or so. It was like a plastic nylon string guitar. I took a couple of lessons. I hated it. I couldn't get my hands to play the notes. My teacher was like a fuddy-duddy guy. Like I couldn't like get into it, and I didn't pursue it. It was only until I turned 12, like where I got bit by like I want to play guitar. But my very, very first one was this. Yeah, I don't even remember where my parents got it from, where they bought it. Probably at a flea market or something. I'm not sure.
So you almost went into piano at 9 years old.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay.
I was like, forget about this. I just wasn't. It was just, I don't know. It was just hard to play. The guitar was hard to play. I was like little. My fingers weren't strong enough, and I had this teacher come to the house. He was, I'm sure a great guy, but like an older man. He was teaching me these like, I'm playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, basically. It wasn't what I pictured. I was like, this
It's
stinks.
not so easy.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Two more. Yourself, are you more into CD, vinyls, or digital music?
Well, I have a renewed respect for vinyl. It's talking about Terminal Velocity. It was released, as you said, on August 28th digitally, but we did a vinyl pressing and a CD manufacturing that will be available October 30th. That just put on my marketing hat. People could pre-order the album, of course.
Absolutely.
But actually, yesterday I just got the vinyl from the plant. It's going now out to all the warehouses, of course, to be available in time. But I got to look at the vinyl, and it's just something really magical about that. Brings me back. But just the fact that the presentation of the artwork is so much, it's just so large, and you can really dive into it, and the vinyl sounds great. So, probably as an audiophile, that side of me, there's nothing like hearing music as it was recorded and intended, which you're not gonna if you're not listening to some HD version, you're not gonna get. So there's some limitations to vinyl and CD and stuff like that. But as far as an experience, I have a newfound respect for vinyl. That's not something that I've been into as much lately. But again, doing this record myself definitely gave me newfound respect.
You just talked about the art. I mean, the cover, your album cover is beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Who did it?
So his name is Sean Moser Smith. He's an artist in Brooklyn. We actually Dream Theater worked with him, not specifically on a cover design, but Sean did the layout for the Astonishing record. So the Astonishing art was done
Okay.
by a Chinese artist who delivered the artwork, but Sean put the packaging together, and he also does websites and advertising and things like that. So he ended up doing like for that record, our tour program, our ad posters, all this great stuff. And I've always known that he's been incredibly talented. He did the Stone Sour records and stuff like that. And when thinking about my album, he just immediately came to mind because I wanted the artwork to this to be for this to be different than Dream Theater art, which I love. Hugh Syme does an incredible job with that kind of photo surrealism. But for this, it's different. It's a solo album. I wanted it to be colorful, kind of abstract. Immediately thought of Sean, went to his website, saw his work, and it was like, oh man,
It's the
he's perfect.
perfect prog rock album cover.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I appreciate it. And he's wonderful. I mean, he ended up like designing my new merchandise for my store. All of the ads and stuff that we've been doing, the vinyl, the digipack, everything. I mean, he's such a great artist. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I have one last question. How long till Terminal Velocity Volume 2?
Oh man, are we gonna wait 15 years again?
No, I'm sure you're not.
No, listen, I'll tell you, like I said earlier, having this studio space
Yeah.
was really, really beneficial in so many ways. In fact, the next Dream Theater record, which we're going to start in about a week and a half, we'll be doing here as well. So it's really paying off as something that's been a real productive space. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to give any
No, no.
times.
Thank you so much for accepting the invite on Profile. It was a true honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for the interview. I appreciate it.
Again, Terminal Velocity was released on August 28th, will be released on like physical format in October, end of October, and it's available pretty much everywhere right now, including Amazon and all digital platforms. Take care, John, and I hope we talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Fred. Nice talking to you. All right. Bye bye.